street soccer. What's good about street soccer? You get to express yourself with your skill, and you don't really have to worry about messing up. Go out there, show your best skills, and just have a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I'm here with Neal Levin, founder, CEO, and nation's leading advocate for street soccer, and we are bringing you episode number 1 of Play On, Why Street Soccer. Hey, Neal. Welcome.
What's up, Johnny? Thanks, man.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about. Let's just start with what you think is meant by the culture of street soccer.
Yeah, so long time ago when I was junior high school, playing soccer, which was not nearly as big as it is today in the United States, but obviously still big in the world. We had on the North Shore of Chicago, a kid from South America playing Manny, and Manny was outstanding. And Manny used to tell us, man, people just don't understand soccer. You don't understand that soccer is not a sport. Soccer is a culture. And I had no idea what that shit meant. And for years, had no idea what that meant. And I've been involved in soccer from playing and coaching and reffing and kids going through AYSO and club teams and high school. And it really wasn't until recently that I finally figured out that there is a major difference between the sport of soccer and the culture of soccer. And just very succinctly, the culture of soccer really has nothing to do with the sport itself. The culture of soccer is that for thousands of years, people have figured out the simplicity, the beauty, and the communal aspect of coming together to propel this little object into an opponent's goal. There's no simpler game, and yet sometimes more complicated game that turns into what was coined the beautiful game for that reason. And you see it all around the world. You see thousands and millions of people playing this game every single day as part of their daily routine, as though they were waking up, brushing their teeth, or waking up and having a meal, or waking up and going to meet with their community to play this game. So that's very different than being coached when you're 2 or 3 and becoming a great player on your club team, and then being recruited and going to higher levels, and et cetera, et cetera. It's which abandons the entire communal aspect of this culture that we've seen grow around the world for, like I say, thousands, if not more, years.
So I think I can guess what you're going to say a little bit here, but what do you think, given your background and experience in soccer here and in the Midwest and in the U.S., what do you think is the current state of soccer in the USA right now?
So, there's a bit of a stigma, and it's well-earned, that the U.S. does not compete internationally very well. We've had a tough time making the World Cups. We're definitely improving, I'd say, in more recent years, recognizing more and more that we need to change some of our ways. But for a long time, since we didn't invent soccer, for a long time, we just assumed that if we threw enough money at it, we'd be good at it too. And that abandons the very culture of soccer that I just spoke of. So I think that, we got off to a bad start, and we turned it into a money sport, a huge money sport. And we build expensive fields and limit their access with permits and fees paid only by, the clubs that have the wherewithal to do so, and the colleges that have the wherewithal to do so, and just more money and more money and more money, probably more than most nations ever put into the sport, and yet we can't be great internationally. So much of that is attributed to the fact that we coach 3-year-olds how to be professional athletes. There's an alarming statistic that 75% of youth drop out of sports by the time they're age 12, and the number one reason given is it's not fun. And that comes from this overstructured, overcoached, overwhistled, unengaging, a model that just completely abandons the connectivity that comes from the culture of soccer. So it's not great. And I can use a really great anecdotal comparison, and that's the girls' side. The women, through Title IX, got a huge kickstart here in the United States at a time when soccer was illegal in many countries for women. And so here we kind of set the tone, and our money did prove valuable because we were able to basically invent women's soccer. But now we see that the rest of the world is catching up and our dominance is waning.
I played youth sports myself, raised my kids in some sports, mostly hockey, very expensive sport. I kind of get why hockey costs money. You need to create ice. You need to maintain the ice. There's a lot of gear involved. Soccer, though, it's so simple. It's sort of shocking how much these programs cost and at what age people are spending the money on their kids. I mean, that creates all kinds of additional pressure on the kid, takes a lot of fun out of it. Is it time to take on the system?
Yeah, definitely. It's time to recognize that the greatest footballers or soccer players from around the world will all say the same thing. Ask any of the Ballon d'Or winners, the highest honor in all of international soccer, where they learned to play soccer. And not one of them will tell you Coach X or $23 million sports park Y. They're all going to tell you that they learned on the streets and at a time when they were not coached, at a time they were playing with their friends every day. Why do all the best hockey players come from Canada? Not because there's something special in the beef or the water, but because they go home every day after school and play on the ponds, unstructured pick-up play. Where the best basketball players in the world come from? They came from the urban centers, the streets of New York, the streets of Chicago, the streets of LA, because they went every single day and they would commune and they would play. And you learn so much more than the sport, which is so essential to be good at a sport. You will learn life skills in the streets. You learn, if a 9-year-old is playing out there with a 17-year-old, you learn skills. And the 17-year-old gains just as much as the 9-year-old gains when they play together. And when the good play with the bad, and when, skilled and unskilled, when they all come together to play, everyone gets to be themselves. They get to express themselves. It becomes your own personal art form. And there's no restrictions. There's no coach telling you no or bad or don't do this or telling you to do this a certain way. You're not worried about taking risks. You're not worried about putting yourself out there. And that creates an empowered individual from within. And then the talent is the byproduct of that. Their skill is a byproduct of that. So we have it backwards. We are trying to coach the game into our youth before we allow it to form within them as a person. And you could see it. If you pare it down and you look at us play internationally, you could see the difference in the beauty of the play because it comes from within the person versus what a coach gave you out of a manual or out of even his own or her own experience over the years as being the right way to play.
Changing the way we in the United States approach youth sports is going to be a tall order. Right. Yeah. It's not just that we've monetized it, but the world's a different place. There's a lot of things other people in general do besides exercise and go outside and things like that.
Well, one more anecdote on that, John, is that, clearly you and I similar in age. When we grew up, I distinctly remember, how many days when it was just, meet out front with your buds and, get a bike and build a ramp to jump your bike with, or play in the local playground and climb the swing sets and jump from the top or go play a sport, stickball. 3 people make a stickball game, right? You don't need 9 people on a team to assemble and play ball. 3 people, and you're learning how to bat, you're learning how to pitch, you're learning how to field. Same thing with the culture of soccer. It could be 2v2, 3v3, 5v5. You and I have gone 1v1 in a pitch before. You can't do that in a coached program. And really, one of the biggest reasons is the coach is fearful of being fired because there's going to be a soccer mom out there that says, you're not doing enough for my kid if you're just standing there watching them play and encouraging them to do they're doing. You and I didn't grow up that way, man. You and I grew up being able to be out there and be free and have fun and learn from the streets. So we need a paradigm shift here. We need to return to those days and then learn how to harness that greatness at the older levels and not try and overcoach them or be so fearful of our $1 million coaching job at NC2A schools that it's win at all costs, and it doesn't, and it just dismisses understanding who the people are.
Okay, so clearly, Neal, you're passionate about soccer and especially street soccer. So why don't you take that lead and tell us about Mettle Sports?
Well, I was heading down the wrong path, John. Working in the North Shore area of Chicago, we have so much need for space. Soccer, football, lacrosse, even cricket's coming to town, rugby. Every weekend is a land grab all through the North Shore of Chicago, and just a scramble to reserve enough time.
Interrupt real quick and say that North Shore and need, those words don't always go together. So,
yeah, very true. Well, that's another good point, right? We got more money than we could possibly imagine what to do with, and yet we can't solve this little problem of why we can't get everyone playing. And that is part of the reason Mettle was born. Here I was going to build a $35 million sports park with pristine indoor-outdoor full-size fields. I was going to have the requisite player rooms and snack bars, and I was even going to put a 4-season climbing wall out there. And it was the Taj Mahal of North Shore sports centers on 15 acres. And I just stopped. I'm like, what the fuck? That's ridiculous. You go around the world, this is not where kids play. They don't play in $35 million sports parks. We're the only country in the world that builds $35 million sports parks for 5-year-olds. What's wrong with us? And I just stopped. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. And I recognize even on the back of a ferry going from the UK to Amsterdam, there was a 3v3 cage. And we're playing footy on the back of the ferry. They play everywhere, and they play 2v2, 3v3 all around the world, 4v4, 5v5 on anything they can amass as a little stadia and make it your own. And it was so powerful, and it was so liberating to play without a coach and a whistle and drills and structure and registration and zoning and people fighting over what town do you live in because then you're making your team too good. I mean, the bullshit had to stop. And I said, it's street soccer. Street soccer is the greatest amenity and activity the world knows because of what it does for the person. So much more than a coach can ever do. And I'm not knocking all coaches. There's some amazing coaches out there doing incredible things. But you know what? We got to just let people play. And the way to do that is create amenities where that's all they need to do, show up to play. I'm just tired of seeing people spend millions of dollars building expensive fields and then putting up a sign that says, no playing without permit, and lock the goals up. I mean, those are tax dollars. And we can't play soccer? So Mettle Sports was born with the mission of providing greater access to the beautiful game and simplicity of street soccer for everyone.
Yeah, it's incredible to me that soccer there's so many barriers to entry in the U.S. I mean, around the world, it's every man's game. It's everybody's game. And here you have large populations of people who really don't even know what soccer is, for one thing. Others that know plenty about soccer, say Hispanic, Eastern European, but they can't make the time commitment, the money commitment to get involved in these clubs and things like that. And they just don't get a chance to play.
So that's the staggering number. Is under the U.S. Soccer Federation, which is the governing body for U.S. soccer, and it covers everything from AYSO to the national team program, of which there's only several hundred people. The total number for that organization, the U.S. Soccer Federation, is about 3.5 million, depending on how you count it. There's a lot of double counting that goes on. The estimate is that there are over 25 million people who play. And to your point, there's a lot of ethnicity behind that, right? So if you come from Mexico, if you come from South America, if you come from, that this is the game you play. And you look for any way possible to play it, but unfortunately, there's just not enough access to it. There's not enough space. If you're in a densely populated urban center, you don't have your own little personal stadia down the end of the block. The only way you're going to get access to it is larger programs, like you said, pay-to-play programs. But even in the programs where you don't have to pay, even the good-hearted souls that put together programs which are free, we don't see kids registering to play. Because to your point, it comes with a time commitment. It comes with structure. It comes with coaching. It comes with being told what to do. And so we need to give access to those 25 million people to play. And the upside will be the other 3.5 million who are playing under the national program or the national banner. When they start playing this, they're really going to get good. But that's the byproduct of street soccer, is being good. The primary benefit is the community that it builds. And we as a society need that more than anything. We are not coming together. We are as divisive as we've ever been. And the other day, when I'm seeing a bunch of kids who are Muslim playing another bunch of kids who are Hasidic Jews on the same street soccer pitch, I rest my case.
Well, clearly your passion and frustration come out when you start talking about this. And so I know there's a lot more you have to say. That's why we're here. That's why we're making a podcast. What's the plan for the podcast? What do you think?
You know, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that has a lot to say. Yeah, I'm wildly passionate about this, but I know that there's a lot of people that get it, and there'll be those people who challenge it, and there'll be those people who are in the community side of it, those people that are in the soccer side of it, those people who are in the, we need people to support what we're doing too, right? So we're all about marrying a variety of stakeholders, whether it's, but including developers who have land and urban planners and the folks in planning development, the folks in parks, all of whom, by the way, just love what we're doing. And we're going to talk about that too, because there's lots of cool ways to roll this out in mass. But we also want to hear. We're really good listeners. And it was listening, which is what I did when I was at the back of the ferry and looking at everyone playing 2v2, 3v3 around the world. And I said, I'm listening. This is what we need. We want to hear from people on this podcast. We're going to create ways for people to call in, maybe do some live stuff. We're going to have some great guest speakers from all different facets, as we talked about. And come on, yell, scream, show your passion, whatever side you might end up on the discussion. Doesn't matter. We want to hear from everybody. So, play on.
So before we wrap up this first episode, why don't you talk a little bit about what Mettle's doing right now, this summer, this fall? What are we doing to move the needle?
Yeah, so we figured the fastest way we can get street soccer out to the people is a concept called the Street Soccer Tour. And this is where we took some really cool street soccer courts, as we call them. They're paneled systems. They look like small ice rinks, but it makes it so the play is fast and inviting. It's fun to walk in, close the gate, and it becomes your little stadia. So we're really big on getting these street soccer pitches out there as the amenity that we bring into the urban centers. So the only way to get it out there really, really fast was to throw a bunch of them on a truck and start traveling around Chicago and dropping them in different parks for 2-3 weeks at a time, letting the community use it. We became a partner with the park district, where we basically have carte blanche to go to any park in the city and then let the community come out and play. And it's free, and it's unstructured, and it's pickup, and it's communal, and they create parties, and they create gatherings, and people come out with food, people come out with music. The communities take ownership of the use of this amenity because it is cultural and not the sport. So that's what we're doing. We're getting it out as fast as we can through the tour concept, and then that's going to culminate in a cup where we don't look for the best teams in Chicago necessarily. We don't look for the best players in Chicago. We look for the best neighborhoods in Chicago. So neighborhoods are empowered when they are challenged with the idea of producing their best. So our favorite line is, show us what you got and bring it and play on. And so we're going to have a cup at the end of the year, like we did last year in October, where it's neighborhood versus neighborhood to earn the bragging rights, best street soccer neighborhood in Chicago.
So if you're in Chicago and you're listening to this, get a team together. www.chicagostreetsoccercup.com. Free entry, open. It's not age restrictive, gender restrictive. It's open to anybody from anywhere in Chicago. And the dates are October 13th to 16th.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Johnny. Play on.